Good Friday morning. A feel-good football Friday got kicked off last night with a game that no one was really paying attention to between the Panthers and the Falcons. There was rain. There wasn't a lot of anything, but we're looking forward to a big weekend in the NFL with the Giants back in action. Bye week that wasn't great for them, losing Xavier McKinney, but this is a team that's trotting back on the field with a 6-2 record against the worst team that they're probably going to play all year. They are a 6.5-point favorite. I don't know if it's gone down. I'll take a look a little bit later when we do our picks. Now, there's different types of must-win spots, Boomer. There's the must-win spot to, save your season. Like, if you lose it, then your season's over, or change the trajectory of your season. And there's the must-win spot where you just can't lose this game. The way that this season has gone, you cannot lose to Davis Mills, Lovie Smith, potentially Brandon Cooks, and the one-win Houston Texans. The fans are going to be nuts, and this is a must-win spot for a different reason for the Giants. Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
You know what? I'm doing great. My hockey team scored 8 goals last night, so I'm all jacked up this morning. Yeah, we had a great event for our Young Professionals Committee last night at 48 Lounge in New York City. Big thank you to Tradeweb, Casamigos, and Lemon Perfect for being sponsors. I had about 250 people show up last night. Awesome. A bunch of young kids all, making their way through New York City, young professionals, a lot of kids that hope to be, great in whatever line of work they're in. So we had a great party last night, so it was good. So I got a chance to see the last period of the Ranger game, and then I watched the second half of this ugly football game last night that was in a rainstorm, and it was just brutal. It was a brutal game, and Atlanta missed an opportunity. And this is why we're talking about the Giants this morning. They can't miss this opportunity. You've been saying it for weeks now. They do have the Texans and the Lions back-to-back. The Giants are a team that can't take anybody for granted. They're still trying to figure out who they are. They know that they have a very good running back. They know that they have an okay quarterback that they're trying to get even better so they can make that decision at the end of the year. These games are really important for Daniel Jones. That's who I think these games are really important for.
Oh, yeah. For his future as a Giant, his future as a starting quarterback in the league, the future for his wallet. I mean, this is it for him. Now, he's gotten off to a great start. I mean, I was thinking maybe there's a chance he'd be benched in the first 6 games. It's been the exact opposite of that. But how he plays from Sunday to the end of the year and a potential, which I would believe a likely playoff game, is going to determine his entire future in the NFL.
That's right. And, they're good enough at the point now where they're not going to have a high draft pick. They're not going to have a chance at one of the top-end quarterbacks, at least now projected to be top-end quarterbacks. They'll go through all the scrutiny and everything else, and when we get the draft day, we'll figure out who's going to go high and who's not going to go high. But I think they're out of that mix now, unless they do some trades and whatever, if they see somebody that they really like, that they think they can build a team around. But this is like Daniel Jones's moment to me, and it's the rest of the season, and he's played well up to this point. He's only had 4 turnovers, which is great. And now he's got to finish this season strong. And hopefully Kenny Golladay comes back and plays. And because of the loss of Xavier McKinney, an already thin defensive backfield is even thinner. And this is where the offense has got to kick in against some of these bad defensive teams.
Yeah, and you want to see more out of the passing offense. And Saquon Barkley's been, I think, 65% of their offense this year, so you need to see a little bit more through the air. And Kenny Golladay being a factor in the second half of the season would be very nice. Now, you love Wan'Dale Robinson, what he's been able to do. Richie James, outside of those fumbles, has been a nice little player for them. But if they're really going to want to compete with the best in the conference, and they are one of the best in the conference right now, but really want to compete with the Eagles, who they have twice on their schedule, they got to be able to throw the ball better.
You're right. And it can't just all be Saquon Barkley. But, the interesting thing, I was looking at, that whole stat pack that we get, and the rushing yards are up significantly this year. The passing yards are down a little bit, except for in a couple instances, like both Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes are on pace for over 5,400 yards passing. But there's more running, and 2 of those quarterbacks, both Lamar Jackson and Justin Fields, are in the top 11 rushers in the league. So there's more running this year. Games tend to be shorter when there's more running. So that's why Saquon Barkley has the numbers he has. And I think I don't necessarily know that they're trying to protect Daniel Jones. I don't think that's the case. I think that Brian Daboll came in this year and was going to hold him, to his feet to the fire when it came to interceptions and fumbles. And he was going to push the envelope for him, and he was not going to back off. Like, he was not going to take his foot off the pedal. And he was going to keep the pressure on, and he was going to see if this kid is worth the investment moving forward. Because if it is, they can either franchise him, which is still going to be a huge number, or they can come to a meeting of the minds and maybe do a shorter contract, maybe a 3-year deal where there's an opt-out somewhere in there. I don't know if Daniel will go for that. Again, I'm just speculating. But if he finishes strong, then and they feel like they can build around him, then they're going to end up giving him a contract. So this is it, man. This is where Daniel Jones has got to plant his flag and really be the difference maker for the Giants.
Now, I'm trying to think of an example in the past of a guy like Daniel Jones that hits free agency. Now, Kirk Cousins went to free agency after being franchise tagged twice.
Yes.
And there was a lot more buzz about him when he went to free agency. The Jets wanted him, the Vikings wanted him, and he got that guaranteed deal. Then there's other guys that are like, did not pan out at all, like a Sam Darnold who gets cut and then gets or whatever.
He got traded.
Traded. Gets traded. Baker Mayfield gets traded. Like stuff like that where guys didn't work out, top-end picks, and then they're there at a different team and they're just scuffling. But someone like Daniel Jones, I'm trying to find that example of someone who, got off to a little bit of a rough start, put together a pretty good year, and then hits free agency as a potential starting quarterback and what type of contract that guy can get.
Especially being a first rounder. There are other guys. There are late round guys that have done that.
Sure.
Trent Green did that. Rich Gannon did that. People like that. But not a first round draft pick.
Marcus Mariota's
but he's another one last night. But he was terrible last night.
I know he's terrible, but he was someone who kind of fits that bill, is what I'm talking about.
Well, yeah, he was a first round draft choice. And then basically ended up in the Raiders as a backup, and then fell into the hands of Arthur Smith in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So he's on his third team already. Here's the thing that I would say: if Daniel Jones can do what he's been doing and just get better and better and better each week, and I know he's going to have a bad game here one of these games, not these next 2 weeks, but against some of the better defenses he's going to play, and they're not going to be explosive numbers, but I would advise him, if he could stay, that he should stay, because it looks like Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka got something with this offense and putting him in it.
Do you think that Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll actually thought that they would have to make this decision about Daniel Jones at the end of this year? Because, I think, and I could be wrong, but I think they were probably saying, we'll squeeze as much as we can out of this guy this year, and then we're going to bring in our own guy.
If they knew who he really was and they were happy with him, the contract would have already been offered. But you haven't heard anything about that.
No.
They're still evaluating him, and Joe Schoen was pretty honest about that during the bye week. We're still in the evaluation phase. They still want to see more. They still want to see him, hit the afterburners. Mm-hmm. I feel like Justin Fields is hitting the afterburners now. They figured out an offense. They figured out a way to get him more involved and to get him to calm down on the field and make some plays. And he certainly has done that the last 3 weeks. And I think the Bears are fairly bullish on him moving forward. I think the Jets are fairly bullish on Zach Wilson moving forward, although he hasn't had that signature game yet. They can see the playmaking. They can see the accuracy. They can see when he is calm and he stays in the pocket and he reads the defenses, that he can put the ball right on the receiver and not turn the ball over. So I think there are signs where they feel pretty good about him. But I think the Daniel Jones thing is really strange to me, because I know the ownership loves him, and I know that the organization loves him. The question is can he just get to that next level?
Yeah, and we have not quite seen that. And it was the Offensive Player of the Week 1 week, and it was a lot to do with his legs that week.
That's okay, though.
Yeah, that's
fine.
fine.
That's who he is as a player.
And he's won a bunch of games. I think that we're going to get to that same point we do with a lot of these quarterbacks where you ask the question, what's the alternative? And that's what it's going to come down to. And the Rams gave Jared Goff a contract and then decided, what's the alternative? We can get Matthew Stafford. See you later, Jared Goff. The 49ers gave Jimmy Garoppolo a contract. They got frustrated with him disappearing. They got frustrated with his injuries, frustrated with him playing in big games, not getting it done. the alternative was to draft in the top 5 and get a quarterback. So there's been examples of guys giving contracts or teams giving contracts to guys like that and then moving on a few years later. But what will be the alternative this offseason? We saw a bunch of quarterbacks switch teams last offseason. I don't know if you're going to see that this year. And if the Giants are drafting at like 25, I mean.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And that's why they want to see more. They want to see. And they're going to put him in positions to be able to evaluate that, just so you know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think number one right now for them, they can get to the playoffs, and their fan base feels it.
I think they will.
So they're gonna do everything they can to win games first and foremost. There's no question about that. But there's going to be a game or two here in the final, 7 games or 8 games that he's going to have to win it throwing the ball. If he can, if they have the right wide receivers out there making plays for him, he's going to have to do that, and they're going to have to see that. Because the worst thing would be to get to the end of the season, make it to the playoffs, and still not be totally sure. But then again, not have that alternative.
That to me seems like the most likely outcome.
So they're going to have to come to some sort of reasonable agreement.
Yeah, right. And Daniel Jones will probably want to stay, as you mentioned. He doesn't seem like a guy that's going to go out there and chase the top dollar.
I would say just watching the way he's played this year and the way that they're treating him, I would say stay with this coaching staff if you can. If you can.
Yeah, I mean, he's playing his best football right now with these guys. I mean, he's not turning the ball over. The offensive line's playing better. So it's interesting. Also, the Saquon Barkley contract is interesting, too. I mean, very interesting. Now, he has meant almost everything to the Giants offense so far this year. CBS Sports Network put up a graphic. I believe he's 4th in total scrimmage yards in the NFL this year. But he's a running back.
You could always franchise him.
You could. I wonder what that number is.
For a running back, it's not nearly what it is for a quarterback. That's the thing.
I know.
Come to some agreement with Daniel Jones on a reasonable number,
running
back. And then franchise him. But when you take a look at most scrimmage yards in the NFL right now, Saquon Barkley is 3rd on that list behind Tyreek Hill and Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's already over 1,000 yards rushing, I guess, total yards, scrimmage yards. And Tyreek Hill's on pace for 2,000 yards receiving.
Unbelievable. Everybody thought he was going to have a bad year going from Patrick Mahomes to Tua. So this was this year, and the numbers are going to change for 2023. But this year, the franchise tag figure for a quarterback, $29.7 million. For a running back, 9.5.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
I mean, that right there is a fiscally responsible move if they franchise tag Saquon Barkley.
Right. Well, I mean, again, it's all going to come down to what is the alternative.
Yeah.
If the Giants go to the playoffs this year, breaking in a new quarterback next year, that's the alternative.
Yeah, I don't think
that's probably going to be a step back if Daniel Jones gets this team to the playoffs.
I mean, they have a chance to win a playoff game too. By the way, I mean they could do that. I mean, and I think they're going to the playoffs. I mean, they've got these 2 games at home.
You could see that. I could see them going down to Tampa, playing Tampa.
Yeah, I mean,
they're gonna go visit a division winner.
Mm-hmm.
Most likely, the Philadelphia Eagles. Most likely will be the one team with the bye.
Yeah,
and I'm trying to think they'll probably, depending on how it shakes out with the wild card and everything, they're going to be either at Minnesota, at Tampa, or at maybe the 49ers.
Let me tell you something. If the Giants beat the Vikings in the playoffs, I'm going to have to take at least a week off. There is no way I'm going to be able to come in here and take those phone calls. No way in hell I'm going to be able to survive that.
I'm praying for that.
They do play him in the regular season. We'll see what happens there in Minnesota. But if they ended up meeting in the playoffs, that would be absolutely incredible.
Quickly, let's go to Craig in South Amboy. Craigie, what do you got, brother?
Listen, I'm a big Giant fan. Boomer, love Gio, love listening to the show.
Thanks.
Is Daniel the answer to the problem? I don't know. I mean, they could be 7-2 at the Texans. You got the next game probably 8-2. But what are you going to do after the season? And you guys brought it up. If they do make the playoffs, you're going to have to sign him because, well, to be honest, what other quarterback you going to get?
Well, that's the whole thing, Craig. Do you think he's good enough to stay?
Well, what other quarterbacks are you going to get?
Yeah, I know.
You already won too many games to get a good draft pick, so forget about the draft pick. That's out the window. I mean, who are you going to trade for? You're going to do what Denver did? Trade for Russell Wilson? Trade the farm?
Oh, hey. God dang, man. 6:14 in the morning, he's already cursing?
I did not expect that out of Craig.
No, I didn't.
Did not. He just seemed like a great Giants fan, breaking it down. I did not expect that out of him. But people feel comfortable with us. That's what it comes down to.
That's what it is? You think so?
I think that's what it is. It's just, shooting the breeze with your friends, chopping it up with your buddies.
Chopping it up with your boys. Yeah. I got it.
All right. It is Boomer and Gio on the Fan and CBS Sports Network. Jerry Recco's update coming up.